Live from London, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Vonnie Quinn with your top stories. Nvidia, the world's most valuable company, easily beats estimates, but investors give the company's outlook a lukewarm reaction. Cuban forces kill 4 people who had approached the island on a Florida-tagged speedboat, risking escalation with the United States. Plus, the German Chancellor says Airbus is set to secure a major order from China as he continues his state visit to Asia's largest economy. The rally may have been arrested. Let's look at these markets. Europe is looking a little mixed right now, but in the United States, we are firmly lower. This after, of course, 2 nice gains in the last 2 sessions, bringing the Nasdaq 100, in fact, into the green for the year once again by just 0.3%. The S&P, however, is up 1.5% for the year after the last 2 days of gains. But we did have that nice rally yesterday. Nvidia could be setting the tone today. Those futures are looking just a little bit unsettled right now, slightly lower. And of course, that nice rally that we saw right after the results yesterday completely faded. 10-year yield still at 404, not much going on there. We're still looking at Japan very closely. That yen at 155.92. Obviously, the dollar is weakening just in general against many major Asian currencies, but the yen strengthening today just by about a big figure. Some of your risk events for Thursday. Those Gordon and Denton polls, they open at 7 UK time, that by-election obviously happening. 8:30 a.m. UK time, ECB President Christine Lagarde is speaking at the European Parliament. And then, of course, later on today at 1:30 p.m. UK time, we get US jobless claims. Nvidia, the dominant maker of artificial intelligence processors, has failed to impress investors, perhaps with its latest sales forecast. The chipmaker delivered a first-quarter outlook that easily beat average estimates, but there was little change in the shares over concerns about an overheated AI economy. For more, I'm joined by Bloomberg senior market strategist Neil Campling. Talk us through the numbers, Neil, because we might be over-concentrated on the share price reaction.
Yeah, the numbers themselves were undeniably strong and solid. The key upside to the fiscal fourth quarter was a $2 billion upside on revenues, and that was driven by data center. The CEO mentioned that data center, 50% of those revenues of $62 billion were coming from the hyperscalers. That was very strong. The guidance for fiscal Q1 of $78 billion of revenue was a great, $6 billion ahead of street consensus. So those numbers itself were very strong. There were some concerns, you could argue, around some of the things, such as the supply commitments, which jumped from about 50 billion to 90 billion in the quarter, which people were talking after the numbers that could be about the memory shortage, securing supply ahead of that time. And the OpenAI commitments, there was no qualification that that deal is yet done. So again, we're still waiting when there's nervousness around that in the market.
So definitely still some open questions. Now, we also learned that the US government has granted Nvidia a license to ship H200 chips to China with a 25% fee and so on. How much might that actually contribute, even though probably not next quarter, right? They're not going to count it?
That's correct. They're not including the China potential data center revenues in the guidance itself. So that's a potential incremental upside to those numbers. I think overall it's fairly small. The caveat, of course, is that the US government has approved that. The Chinese government hasn't yet. So it's still another uncertainty as to whether that becomes a big growth driver in the future, or whether the tensions around IP and between the China and the US is still a concern, I think, going forward this year.
All right. Neil Campling, thank you so much on Nvidia there. Well, as I said, Nvidia failing to impress investors despite that blockbuster quarter amid concerns about the impact AI will have on the wider economy. Let's bring in Mark Cranfield, Bloomberg Markets Live cross-asset strategist. So, Mark, the implied move was at least 5%. We got almost there, and then that move faded. What's your take?
Well, as Neil was saying, it's partly about what Nvidia didn't tell investors here. So there wasn't much clarity on China, how they propose to do more in the Chinese markets. Now they've got some approvals. They didn't say much more about Blackwell chips, which in the previous couple of quarters has been a very big deal for them, a huge amount of money invested in there. They didn't give much guidance on that. So investors a little bit disappointed there. And then you've got the other side of the equation, the things that Nvidia is now competing with, which weren't so clear just a year ago or even a few months ago. So you've got, just in the past few days, things like Advanced Micro has got a huge deal now with Meta. So clearly competition is starting to build up with Nvidia's products as well. So Meta's made a very big deal there, and they're going to invest in AMD as well. You're seeing also from an investor's point of view, the alternatives now are looking a lot more attractive away from the United States. So even going back, say, just 6 months ago, when Nvidia stock started to go sideways, it wasn't so clear that the rest of the world was such a great place. Now it is. You've got where global investors are looking to put their money into Samsung, into SK Hynix, into Taiwan Semiconductor. These stocks are absolutely roaring, and their currencies are appreciating at the same time. So it's a double whammy. If you're a global macro investor, not only do you see potential upside on the equities, which are relatively undervalued compared to some of the US peers, there's currency appreciation as well. This all detracts from the opportunities that Nvidia has. So no longer is it a case of I must be in the big tech companies in America. There are equally attractive, maybe even better alternatives in the rest of the world. Asia certainly has some of those. So this is what is a difference from a global investor's point of view. They can see other places. They may have more upside, better alternatives. So Nvidia really not just has to produce outstanding numbers, it has to be extremely convincing that its outlook is better than the comparables outside the United States. And on top of all of that, you've got all these recent reports which question whether the overspending is already beginning to happen, whether or not the markets are actually going to be there. It's all very well projecting forward and saying that you can hit these kind of revenues. Investors are much more skeptical because they're hearing more and more cases where there's destruction coming in the AI space, in the software space especially. And these are the potential customers for future down the road who might not be there when they're needed to buy some of this equipment. So the outlook is not as bright, plus the competition is much greater than it was even just a few months ago for Nvidia.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see how it trades in the main US session and if it hold on to recent gains at least. Bloomberg MLive strategist Mark Cranfield, thank you so much. Well, as Mark was saying, stocks in Asia gaining for a fourth day. Let's get an update from Winnie Su in Tokyo. Winnie.
Yeah, morning, Vani. Like you said, we had a really strong session in Asia today with the MSCI Asia here up almost 1% to another record high. And driving gains today are South Korean stocks. And in fact, Kospi here up more than 3%. And it's really coming also after the Bank of Korea keeping rates steady and signaling no further policy changes in the next 6 months. And when it comes to the overall Nvidia impact, as you mentioned, in Asia, quite muted because investors right now, they are looking for not just the confirmation, but really the acceleration when it comes to the AI revenues. And hence you're seeing Taiwan's TAIEX index here pretty flat. But when it comes to the underperformance, also keep an eye on Hong Kong shares, especially those Chinese shares listed in Hong Kong, because under some pressure also ahead of key earnings, including Baidu that's due later today. And let's shift the focus into Japan, because actually we have heard from Bank of Japan's Governor Ueda saying that he will examine the impact of December and earlier rate hikes when determining the next rate hike. And hence that is reinforcing more bets around further tightening by the BOJ. And hence you're seeing some strengthening in the Japanese yen and also 10-year yield here up about 2 basis points. And that is also helping bank shares. And hence you're seeing why the broader topics here outperforming the tech-heavy Nikkei 225. Back to you, Vani.
Traders having so much fun with Japan these days. Winnie, thank you so much. Winnie Su in Tokyo. Cuban forces have killed 4 people who had opened fire from a speedboat with Florida identification tags. The Interior Ministry in Havana claims the boat's occupants intended to enter the country and fight against the government. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said a U.S. investigation is now underway.
I'm not even going to speculate as to what it could have been. It's a wide range of things. But suffice it to say, it is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. It's not something that happens every day. It's something, frankly, that hasn't happened with Cuba in a very long time. But we're going to find out. We're not going to base our conclusions on what they've told us.
Let's bring in Bloomberg's Washington Deputy Bureau Chief, Laura Davison. Laura, what exactly do we know about this incident?
Well, as we heard from Marco Rubio, the U.S. response has been quite muted so far. Most of the information has come from the Cuban government side, who said that they shot fire on this boat, speedboat carrying 10 people, 4 of whom were killed in the incident. Another 6 were injured. This boat was registered in Florida. Speedboat built in the 1980s, and that these folks were armed and that they were coming to Cuba to commit acts of terrorism. You know, it's exactly unclear what is happening, but this is hitting at a really critical moment between U.S. and Cuba tensions. You know, there's been a U.S. embargo of oil to Cuba for several weeks now, and the island is really facing an economic crisis as there's major energy shortages, and the country is essentially running out of money.
Laura, given the U.S. is actually carrying out its own investigation, as you might expect, could we anticipate that there might be some kind of response from Washington at some point?
There certainly might be. You know, Trump, over the recent weeks has said that he, is watching Cuba shortly. He's really deputized Marco Rubio to manage that relationship, and has not been specific in what might happen with Cuba, but has not ruled out anything, including a military action there. You know, Trump has suggested that he's interested in toppling the regime there. He said that an operation like we saw with Maduro in Venezuela probably won't be necessary, but again, he's keeping his options open. Cuba, because of Rubio's historic ties to the country, his family ties there, has been sort of a key issue for him, particularly, seeing the end of communist rule. But it's really unclear. There's a lot else that the U.S. government is managing right now, namely, potential military strikes in Iran. So there's a lot of competing forces here, and, exactly, how this changes things. This really caught the U.S. by surprise. We couldn't have heard that in the clip from Rubio here. They're still figuring out exactly how they want to respond.
All right, Laura, thank you so much. That is Bloomberg's Washington Deputy Bureau Chief, Laura Davison. Still ahead, a major Chinese deal with Airbus. What we're learning from German Chancellor Merz's inaugural visit to China. But first, AXA reports full-year underlying profit that meets estimate as the French insurer announces a €1.25 billion buyback. We'll speak with the CEO, Thomas Buberl, next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. AXA has announced a €1.25 billion buyback after reporting earnings in line with estimates. We're joined now by the AXA Chief Executive, Thomas Buberl. And thank you so much for joining. Congratulations on the quarter. So you had a beat on full-year revenue, a very, very slight miss on underlying profit. Can you give us a little bit more on your outlook for how growth continues to perform over the coming year?
Look, we are very pleased to report record results this morning. That's the highest result that AXA has ever shown, coming from all countries, from all lines of business, and based on a very solid balance sheet, which also makes us very confident that this year will be a good year. We are well positioned. We are on all the major risks that are increasing now, where we can serve our customers better. So I'm looking towards 2026 with a very positive outlook.
You mentioned the balance sheet, Thomas. Can you tell us how it's better insulated from macro volatility these days and natural catastrophe exposure too?
Yes, obviously we live in a world in which we encounter many risks every day, different risks, be it on the insurance side, but also on the asset side. And our strategy is very clear and simple. We are going to, or we have diversified our balance sheet and our insurance exposure as much as we can, so that we are present everywhere, but never too much, so that you can present very solid and stable results.
All right. Well, you are present very much in France. It's about a quarter of your business. And I'm curious, there's been a lot of flooding, a lot of problems with flooding, particularly in Western France. How do you anticipate that will affect your business going forward? And are you doing anything to try and minimize any future exposure?
Look, these events are first and foremost very sad events because a lot of people, in this case French households, have been touched by it very negatively after 40 days of rain. So I feel very sorry for what has happened to many people in France. And obviously this is a moment for us to help. And the first and initial reaction is always, how can we make the misery that these people encounter a little easier by helping them, by getting them into temporary accommodation and so on. So this is always the focus that my teams are having now when we are on the ground. When you look at these events, and this is not the first time that these events happen, they happen more and more. And so there is a general question on how can we better prevent against these events? How can we also better work together with the government in order to find solutions to be faster and to be more efficient and effective when it comes to dealing with these events. And the character of prevention, making sure that we do everything to prevent the next claim, this dimension will take much more importance going forward.
Sure, but how much control do you have over that, and how can you adapt your business model given that you have to at least try and control what you can control, right?
Yeah, but that is the easier part of it, because obviously we can choose our exposure, and we've been very mindful over the last years in reducing and trimming and diversifying our exposure. This is the easy part. The question is, how do you help your customer, and how do you make sure that you can help while dealing with these events, because these events have been increasing in frequency. And so my focus is more not how we adjust ourselves. That's done. The question is, how do we help our customers to prevent and make sure that the next claim is not happening?
Thomas, have you stress tested your business model for AI disruption? And if so, what are the segments that would be most affected if, say, a ChatGPT or a Claude were able to showcase and even distribute insurance products?
AI for us is a great opportunity, because if you think about insurance business, insurance is a data business. It's a business that is also heavily relying on unstructured data. If you think about engineers' reports in form of PDFs. And so for us, AI is a great opportunity in three areas. Number one, on the whole side of customer service. So how can we make customer interaction simpler and smoother and more automatic? The second part is, how can we use data better to, on the one hand, price risk, but also to prevent the notion we discussed earlier on natural catastrophes. And the third one is around how do we use AI to increase the speed around our own tech development when it comes to software development and releases. And we are focused on those three areas, and I do believe that OpenAI and Claude are not competitors. They are great partners for us to make sure that the existing distribution channels are being augmented by AI.
Would you anticipate new players entering the market thanks to this? And would that possibly be an acquisition strategy for you next?
Yeah, look, I mean, in a phase where you have technological disruption, you always have new players coming in. I mean, we just bought last year a company called Prima in Italy, which is a very new model on the direct side. And you will have new models based on AI. But what I think is important, not to see these companies as competitors, but to say, look, what can you learn from them, and how can you even collaborate with them to make sure that you get to an overall better customer service and customer interface.
What stage are you at, Thomas, with your next potential acquisition? Have you started to look closely at any particular companies?
Look, we have a great platform that is very well oiled now, and I think the results that we are showing today shows exactly that. A focused platform on insurance, on selected geographies. So our primary focus is how can we grow organically, and that has worked extremely well over the past years. Yes, we have made acquisitions, but I'm not spending 20 hours a day on acquisitions.
Okay. Are you spending time on private credit and the risks there? We're getting more and more warnings every day. How exposed are you to risks surrounding private credit?
So I'm spending obviously a lot of time on private credit because that is an area that has grown. We should know that AXA has an exposure in private credit that is far below its competitors, its European competitors and US competitors, because we have been very mindful in the past. So yes, we analyze our exposure all the time. We make sure we optimize it. But I'm also looking more at the market. And obviously, there is a concern that when things do not go well in the economy, that there could be some fallout from private credit.
Thomas, thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations on the quarter and the full year. That's Thomas Buberl, CEO of AXA. Coming up, a lukewarm sales outlook from Salesforce fuels concerns over the impact of AI. More details next. This is Bloomberg. To Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. Now to some corporate news. The French utility Engie has agreed to buy UK Power Networks, the largest power distribution company, for £10.5 billion. The deal will make Britain Engie's second largest earnings contributor after France. It comes as the UK rushes to expand its grid to meet surging demand from renewables, EVs and data centres. Salesforce fell in extended trading after giving a lukewarm growth outlook. It sees revenue hitting around $46 billion in the new fiscal year, which was in line with analyst estimates but still failed to impress investors. Now, the forecast is fueling Wall Street worries that software giants will lose out to new competitors in the age of AI. President Trump is convening tech executives to sign pledges committing to pay the electricity bill for data centers. The White House says the meeting will happen next week, with representatives of companies including Amazon, Meta, Microsoft and Alphabet expected to attend. Now, while the promises wouldn't be binding, administration officials believe that formal public pledges could bring accountability. And CME Group says gas futures and options on its Globex electronic platform restarted trading after an interruption due to technical issues. Trading in US natural gas futures was halted for more than half an hour yesterday, the second major disruption in 1 month in one of the most heavily traded commodity markets. Metals contracts were also affected. All right, let's have a look at these markets. It's a mixed picture for Europe. Some markets higher, some markets lower in futures. In the United States, we are seeing futures lower now. But again, we should wait and see because the reaction to Nvidia will be all important. It did fade some of its post-earnings gain yesterday, but still very slightly higher in pre-market trading. We're also seeing, of course, the Bloomberg dollar slide just a little bit of strength for the Japanese yen, but we're still around the 156 mark. And Bitcoin, well, it had that nice rally yesterday. We'll see if that extends into today. So far, not so much, but overnight trading can be a little bit volatile in Bitcoin. We're down about 0.8%, but still above $68,000 a coin, which will bring some relief to some retail traders, no doubt. All right, coming up, is there anything Nvidia can do to please investors further? We'll discuss the outlook for the world's most valuable company next. We're going to be speaking with Chris Beauchamp. This is Bloomberg. From London, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Vonnie Quinn with your top stories. Nvidia, the world's most valuable company, easily beats estimates, but investors give the company's outlook a lukewarm reaction. Cuban forces kill 4 people who had approached the island on a Florida-tagged speedboat, risking escalating tensions with the United States. Plus, the German Chancellor says Airbus is set to secure a major order from China as he continues his state visit to Asia's largest economy. Let's have a look at these markets. We're in a period that Ed Yardeni on Wall Street says is AI derangement syndrome. We've gone from fatigue to worry to now what is potentially derangement. And you might be seeing that after Nvidia earnings because we faded the gain that we saw post-market. We'll see how it trades in the European and US sessions today. But of course, as we can see, Nasdaq 100 futures are pointed lower. We have had 2 days of gains, though, bringing the Nasdaq 100 into the green on the year, but just by 0.3%, and severely lagging the S&P, which after those 2 sessions is up 1.5% on the year. There's, of course, also those underlying tensions with China and tariffs. Jameson Greer saying that we're still looking at between 35 and 50% on China, and that's going to continue on. No real movement in US yields. Still seeing plenty of movement in Japan, though. That yen trading above 156 now. This potentially a dollar move today because the dollar is sliding once again. All right, it's time now for your front page news. The Financial Times leading on Nvidia and the stock's lukewarm reaction despite a blockbuster quarter. Anxiety about the AI spending boom is weighing on the chipmaker's shares despite that strong growth forecast. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal splashes on traders pouncing on the tariff refund chaos. The paper reporting that investors are paying more for tariff refund claims since the Supreme Court's decision. And finally, Les Echos, leading on Engie spending more than 12 billion euros to acquire the UK's largest power distribution network. And you can get a roundup of the stories you need to know to get your day going in today's edition of Daybreak. Terminal subscribers, well, you should go to DayBeGo. And I'm just bringing you some breaking news now because Schneider Electric is out with earnings. Fourth quarter revenue of 11.1 billion euros was a beat, and quite a nice beat, actually. The estimate was for 10.89 billion euros. Schneider Electric's fourth quarter organic revenue was up 10.7%. Again, a nice beat to the estimate for organic revenue to grow 7.5%. The CEO of Schneider Electric will be on opening trade. That's in about a half hour's time, so do stay tuned. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Merz continues his first official visit to China today. With news Airbus is set to secure an order for 120 planes from the country. The Chancellor spoke with Chinese President Xi Jinping at the inaugural meeting.
Mr. President, thank you very much for your kind words and for the invitation. I am also honored to be the first head of government you receive in the Year of the Horse. I would like to extend my best wishes for the new year to you personally, to the government, and to the Chinese people. China has been an experienced trading nation for thousands of years. Over the past decades, Germany and China have enjoyed good cooperation and maintained a sound bilateral relationship. I am willing to continue this positive momentum.
I'm joined now by Oliver Crook, Bloomberg Chief Europe Correspondent. So, Ollie, Chancellor Merz heads home later today. Will the opinion be that the trip so far has been a success for Germany and for Europe?
I mean, I think that Airbus order of 120 planes is certainly something that will give some credence to the idea that this was a positive trip for the German Chancellor, but it comes at a time when the relationship between China and Germany has become much more complicated than it's been in previous decades. There, Friedrich Merz was alluding to the trading relationship between China and Germany. Obviously, Germany has had a very large foothold within the Chinese economy for many, many decades. It was really the country and its companies that developed the Chinese automotive market back when the Chinese auto sector basically didn't exist in the 1970s. It was Volkswagen that did all that. But ever since, now there is, of course, a very fiercely competitive Chinese automotive market in which the Germans are now having a very difficult time. And while he was there on his trip, before he went out there, he said that he wanted to address some of the trading concerns with China, the unfair practices, the subsidies. And we should say that there was a period of time last year when basically, in the last couple of years, the German economy was gearing more towards the United States. The United States became the biggest trading partner with Germany. You look back into what happened last year with the Trump presidency, it is now China again. They did 250 billion euros worth of trade last year. And what is uncomfortable for the Germans is it accounted for a 90 billion euro trade deficit that the Germans were running with the Chinese. So that is something that obviously the Germans will be looking to try to rebalance. It is not very clear whether or not they're going to be able to do that. There are some disagreements, obviously, Vani, on the question of geopolitics, the Chinese being a big supporter of the Russian economy and its war efforts in Ukraine, something that the Germans are very uncomfortable with. The question of raw materials and getting the supply chains secured is again something that the Germans are very uncomfortable with. But the issue is, Vani, the Germans wanted to pivot towards the United States. That has proved a lot more difficult. We look at the trade data from last year between Germany and the United States. The exports of German motor vehicles, trailers, and semi-trailers to the United States dropped 18% last year. So that just sort of puts the situation for the Germans where they're in this sort of land of frenemies to the east and to the west, where they need to be friendly with both, but they can't really use one or the other as a sort of reliable ally. So basically, that's the situation for Friedrich Merz as he heads back now to Germany today.
The land of frenemies. What a place to be. Oliver, thank you so much. That is Oliver Crook, Bloomberg's chief Europe correspondent. Nvidia has failed to impress investors with its latest sales forecast. The chipmaker delivered its first quarter outlook that easily beat the average Wall Street estimate, but still faces uncertainty in China and a shortage of memory chips. Bloomberg's Ed Ludlow explains what's behind the market's hesitation.
Sales of $78 billion plus or minus 2% was a projection of confidence. And right now, Nvidia feels confident as well that it has the capacity and the inventory to meet demand going out several quarters. There have been questions about the imbalance between supply and demand, but in particular, to note that outlook for the April quarter does not factor in any sales, data center sales from China. What we learned in parallel in a regulatory filing is that the US government did grant Nvidia some licenses to ship H200s to specific China companies, but they're subject to review and a 25% tariff. And Nvidia said it doesn't know whether China will allow that, will accept the movement of those H200s into the country. Otherwise, it was very much what we expected. Is the AI boom intact? And one of the ways that analysts put that to Jensen Huang was to ask if he sees the capital expenditures of the hyperscalers, which again in the quarter gone and presently account for more than 50% of sales, are growing, in particular when you take into account that their cash flows are being impacted. And the way that Jensen Huang answered it is, well, we see their cash flows growing because the tokens being generated on Nvidia compute platforms are profitable, and basically the software that's out there in the world right now is worth paying for. It's kind of a similar line of argument that Nvidia's made in prior years. The kind of unanswered questions, well, a deal with OpenAI, an investment in OpenAI is close, according to Jensen Huang, but in the 10K, they also disclosed that nothing's yet been finalized or determined. They put a lot of emphasis that the work with the frontier labs is deepening, and only Nvidia can do everything at every layer of the AI stack. We will wait to see in the back half of this year the transition from Blackwell-based systems to Rubin-based systems, Grace Blackwell to Vera Rubin, which, according to executives on the call, is very much on track. This is Ed Ludlow for Bloomberg News in San Francisco.
With me now is Chris Beauchamp, Chief Market Analyst at IG Group. So, Chris, I know you think the stock is cheap. What were the outstanding questions for you? Ed just outlined a number for the street. What were yours?
It was still, what more can they do to really please the market? We saw the immediate reaction in the share price, that it rallied and then finished flat essentially on the day. It's kind of saying you're hitting all the right things. It's just the questions that maybe it's impossible for anybody to answer, except with time. All the expenditure that's going on, really, is that really going to pay off in the longer term? And unfortunately for Nvidia, it can continue to beat expectations as it has done for 9-10 quarters in a row, but those questions only get answered in the future. And for the moment, investors, I think, are looking at that stock, saying yes, it's cheap, but we're just not sure all of this spending is going to really come to pass in a good way for the company.
Does Jensen Huang have the visibility that he projects to the market? Because he acts like he has plenty of visibility, but does he really know?
Yeah, he has the confidence. I think that's probably the best he can do at this point. They can see so much more than I think we can, as you're saying in the report, all the layers, and that it is actually bearing fruit over the course of time. But really, people are still saying, but how is this really ever going to make itself worth all the money it's been spent over the last year? And, of course, the projected spending. And their guidance was strong. We look at the guidance from the rest of the tech sector, still very, very strong. But the sheer amount of money being spent is really still making investors very nervous.
Margins have been in focus, right? We got to 74.5 to 75.5, and the estimate was for 74.7. Do those margins continue to fatten?
I think they stay steady at best. I think that's the hope for Nvidia, is that if they start to worsen, that's when the stock really gets into trouble. I think it's because investors are patient with this at the moment, but they are still very, very nervous. They look at the rest of the sector, they look at Nvidia and say, but all this spending has to go somewhere in the end. And if margins really don't sustain where they are, if they get better, maybe that is something that will help the stock move a little bit higher. But really, it's a case of the investors saying, show me. And that is something Nvidia can't do except with time.
Were you at all concerned that we didn't get more of an update on Blackwell's forecast and also why Rubin has been flagging?
Yes, I think so. There's certain unanswered questions here, really. Where is the demand going to come from? Where's the fresh developments going to come from? And those questions, again, is something that Nvidia really has to start to think about in the next quarter. We do this kind of dance every quarter, really, with Nvidia, the questions that need to be answered. And they seem to get away with it, and they have done, and they did last night. But simply getting away with it probably isn't going to cut the mustard for much longer.
Yeah. Well, you definitely think the stock is cheap here, but it's still, quite richly valued, and the US market sort of depends on it doing well. Is the fact that we might be seeing less volatility maybe a good thing?
Yes, I suppose the earnings from Nvidia aren't what they were. Let's put it that way. Look at the reaction. We still obviously get hung up on every time they come round, but really the reaction has got much quieter. And I think when we say it's cheap, of course, what we're meaning is cheap relative to where it was. And of course, it's moving into a much more mature phase. So maybe this is what we should be expecting and hoping for Nvidia, that they don't become quite the stock where the entire market stands or falls. It becomes less an event. And that's probably a good thing, even though, of course, they still maintain the attention because of their size.
You say it has something of a moat to protect itself, but what is that moat, given that AMD is rapidly making advances and so are other companies?
I think its position is still there. It has that developmental edge over so many, really, and the sheer dominance it has in the market, the proven provider. Others still have a lot of work to catch up and prove they can match the scale that Nvidia provides.
If we see a broader sell-off, because it keeps getting threatened, right? So it hits individual industries, but, any day now it could just hit AI, as Ed Yardeni says. We are in, AI derangement syndrome eras. If it does, will Nvidia get hit along with it, or does it have the fundamentals to keep its stock price solid?
I think it has to, really. I think nothing can escape when the next sell-off comes, but people still feel like they're expecting it every 5 minutes, and they're very jumpy, understandably, when AI seems to move from sector to sector, picking off the targets as it goes along. But it so far hasn't materialised, and investors continue to expect it, and that in some ways almost precludes having a major sell-off, really. People are too nervous, I think, at this point. But if it does turn into a broader one, yes, Nvidia will have to suffer along with it. That, of course, could prove to be the buying opportunity that so many are looking for.
Chris, are you going to continue, as you said just now, to look for buying opportunities in, this sector, maybe the hyperscalers, or is there anything about the funding and how it's being structured that gives you pause on certain companies?
I think it certainly does in some senses. That really, where does it come to fruition in the end? And I think that is enough to make you perhaps a lot more cautious in terms of buying the dip than you would have been, say, 18 months ago. You could have been a lot more happy with buying the dip in a substantial way. I think you have to be more circumspect this time around.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for coming in early and sharing your thoughts. I'm sure you were up late listening to that call. Chris Beauchamp, Chief Market Analyst at IG Group. Coming up, the US ramps up pressure on Iran ahead of another round of talks in Geneva. Details next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. Now to some other stories we're following this morning. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced closer defence, trade and counter-terrorism ties with Israel during a rare visit. Modi told the Israeli parliament the defence partnership is essential in today's uncertain world and both sides are working to expand trade and investment. An Indian official told Bloomberg Modi is also expected to finalise a major order for Israeli-made missile systems. The U.S. Trade Representative says President Trump will sign a directive in the coming days raising global tariffs to 15% where appropriate. Jameson Greer also said the changes would not result in higher tariffs for trading partners that have negotiated lower tariffs, including the EU and the UK.
So our goal with all of this is to have continuity. So we want to have the 10%, and we're looking about how to implement the 15% that the president indicated, because we want to have continuity. We want the countries, we want the companies, we want people to understand that what we were doing before, we're going to reconstruct with alternative tools, because we want to keep going, maintain the policy. We'll just have a change in the legal implementing authorities.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy says he and US President Donald Trump discussed preparations for a meeting between negotiators from their countries planned for today in Geneva, as well as further peace talks involving Russia. The conversation, which lasted 30 minutes, came a day after Ukraine marked 4 years since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. Bloomberg understands that another round of US-led trilateral talks may take place next week. The Trump administration has imposed sanctions on more than 30 entities it says support Iranian oil and weapons sales. The move to ramp up pressure comes ahead of talks expected today in Geneva. The U.S. Secretary of State says Iran is still refusing to discuss its weapons program.
The negotiations tomorrow and the talks tomorrow will be largely focused on the nuclear program. And we hope progress can be made, because that's the president's preference, to make progress on the diplomatic front. But it's also important to remember that Iran refuses to talk about the ballistic missiles.
Let's get more now from Bloomberg Horizon's Middle East and Africa anchor, Jumana Bercetchi. So, Jumana, the U.S. continuing to ramp up pressure on Iran then?
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, Vonnie, it was, I think, just over a week ago where President Trump said that Iran would have 10 to 15 days maximum in order to come to the table for an agreement before they would have to go down the military route. So we're coming up close to that deadline. And of course, that third round of negotiations taking place in Geneva today between the U.S. and Iran. The setup, though, a lot of pressure being applied on the Iranians, be it verbal, with President Trump threatening a military action, saying that really bad things, quote, will happen unless Tehran actually agrees to a deal. We've also seen that substantial military buildup around the region, the biggest buildup since 2003. And on top of that, in the past 24 hours, new sanctions being applied to entities that are involved with the export of Iranian oil and weapons. So this is the pressure campaign that the U.S. is building ahead of these negotiations. Now, what are they going to discuss? As we just heard from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, the talks will likely mostly be centered around the nuclear program. And on that particular topic, the question of enrichment is going to come up. How much enrichment is going to be tolerated? Because the U.S., if they wanted to go maximum campaign, they could say zero enrichment. The Iranians have always said that they would like a little bit of enrichment in order to proceed with the enrichment for civilian purposes or even medical purposes, and also being privy to that non-proliferation treaty, NPT, entitles them to a small token amount of enrichment. So number one, the scope of enrichment. Number two, if that is the case, whether the U.S. are going to really put pressure on Iran to relinquish some of the advanced centrifuges that they have on the ground to ensure that the buildup of material and getting them close to the possibility of building a nuclear weapon doesn't happen at some point in the future. And then also allowing for full, transparent inspections around these nuclear sites. It's been almost a year now since the IAEA have had access to those nuclear sites. So that's going to be a key sticking point. And then finally, if the U.S. want to come back to a deal that they can present to the public as a better deal, quote unquote, than what Obama had agreed to back in 2015, there's been talk about these sunset clauses, i.e. that if Iran commit to a certain level of enrichment or no enrichment, it becomes indefinite. It is not time constrained. So those are a couple of topics that will be discussed today at the meeting. I will tell you, though, that the expectations of reaching a breakthrough are pretty low. And you can see that being priced in. There's still a lot of geopolitical premium priced into where oil is trading. And even the U.S. themselves, the State Departments have evacuated non-essential members of the U.S. Embassy out of Lebanon. And you hear other countries around the world also evacuating their citizens from countries in the Middle East. So high state of alert as we head into the weekend.
All right, Jumana, we'll see if any progress can be made at those talks today in Geneva. That is Bloomberg's Jumana Bercetchi. Thank you. Plenty more coming up. This is Bloomberg.
Nvidia continues to surprise and delight the market. It was a solid set of earnings, and more importantly, they had a very confident outlook for how they were going to sell more AI chips and data center product going forward. And I think we were all looking forward to seeing, is that going to be a thing? Could it be any bigger than this? And they basically said yes.
Nvidia hit it out of the park yet again. We saw, phenomenal results. And I think what was particularly, maybe not surprising, but impressive was 75% growth year on year on the data center space. They're still investing, and these are going to, signal good times to come for Nvidia, in our opinion.
As the market plays tug of war over, is the AI economy booming, or are there concerns around the AI economy, and Nvidia continues to beat regardless of what, this debate is concluding, the stock just keeps getting cheaper and cheaper to the point where it's becoming an obvious buy. If you go and look at those numbers, they are showing extreme levels of supply constraints to where you might even say the word crisis, especially as more HBM memory is needed with each generation of GPU. So overall, I really like to stay where the supply is constrained, because that's the opposite of what defines a bubble.
Bloomberg guests there reacting to Nvidia's earnings, and to that point, let's take a look at this chart because it shows you the consolidation that we've been seeing in the last several months that our own guest, Chris Beauchamp, was talking about earlier. Several months of consolidation. We'll see if we get any kind of breakout after the earnings, but perhaps this is something that makes the stock a little cheap. Our guest, Chris, said that 26 times earnings is maybe fairly valued, and he'd be looking for opportunities to buy. Elsewhere, let's take a look at some other interesting moves in the market. So Bitcoin has been trading with software. So we saw that nice rally yesterday as we saw software come back. Is there a correlation? Is Bitcoin trading just because there's a little bit of relief inside, or are there many other factors involved? Let's wait and see. And then for a third chart, I wanted to show you this economic uncertainty index. It's been rising, particularly after the State of the Union address. It's newspaper-based and news-based, so it's clear that there's a lot of concern out there, from tariffs to all sorts of other risk events. Speaking of risk events, those polls open in the Gordon and Denton by-election in just a couple of minutes' time. Then at 8:30 Eastern, Christine Lagarde is speaking at the European Parliament. And later on, 1:30, we get US jobless claims. It says 1:30 UK time, we get US jobless claims. All right, earnings season continues, and there are plenty of interviews coming up on the opening trade. Do stay with us for conversations with execs from Schneider, Man Group, and the London Stock Exchange.